Hey everyone, this is Sharon with the Cozy Junk Studio. I'm so excited to be back. Now if you're ready for a technique-filled video, go ahead and get out all of those things you love to create with and create right along beside of me. Now let's go ahead and start creating. I'm so excited about this first project and I cannot wait until you all see the end results. Now we're going to start out with this beautiful resin mirror. It's very ornate. I love the way that it's laid out, but we're going to change the color. Even though I like the kind of aged silver, we need this to be something different. So to start out with, I want to cover up the mirror, but I want to use it as a reflective background. And how we're going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and put a coat of Mod Podge on here and then stipple it right at the end. Now I'm going to let that get a little bit tacky and start adding some paint on top of that. I want to use some of these paints I'm trying to use up. I've had them in my stash for a while. They are some Art Alchemy paints and they're very thick, so I do have to mix them with some water to get them to thin out enough for me to use them. Now with these, I'm just going to stipple them on. I'm not going to do any brushing, but just stippling. And I'm not going to hit every single place. I don't mind if some of that beautiful sort of frosted glass shows through. I'm going to use some of this green and some of this pink to give my background a little bit of a magical look because it's going to fit right in with what we're going to be doing. Now for some of these projects, we're going to be using some of the new IOD 2024 summer release, and if you want to have a little bit of fun, show and tell, stay until the end of the video. I want to take this time to say hello to everyone. Oh my goodness, all of you new subscribers. It's been so fun talking to you in the comment section, hearing your stories, and of course talking to all of my subscribers that comment every week. You know who you are, and I think I want to do something really fun with comments in the future. So just keep that in mind, and I'll let you guys know later on kind of what I have in mind for that. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Now after I finished the sponge on the main part, I just took this brush and stippled those edges so we didn't miss any spots or have any little gaps. Next, I'm going to try to use my heat tool to get some cracks to form. Then we're going to use this beautiful Manor Green Fusion paint. I'm going to put 2 coats on all of the silver and let that dry. I absolutely love this green paint. It dries so dark. Let me know, have you ever used this Manor Green before? I really wanted to carry some of that pink and green that's on the mirror over to the other parts of this piece. So I start with the green and pink that we've already used. It's just turning out to look more gold, and it's because of the type of paint it is. It's the kind that not only does it show up a color on white, but it shows up a color on dark. And usually it's more of a gold tint on the dark. So I just grabbed another couple colors that don't do that. They stay the same color no matter what you put them on. So I put pink on the flowers, green on the stems, and then I went to the center and added a little bit of that green in the center of the pink and kind of on some of the petals. And later on you're going to see I add some gold to the center of those flowers and see how it ties into the rest of the piece. Now you'll also see at the end we add some of that green and pink to the mirror near the end, some of that other green and pink. Right now it kind of just looks gold, and it's really mostly just the reflection that you're seeing. I go ahead and do a couple of these on camera and then the rest of them off camera. Now we add probably about 7 more things to this piece. We're not finished by a long shot. It's not going to take that long, I promise, but I don't want you to think this is the last step. If you're not subscribed to this channel and you are enjoying this content, go ahead at the end of the video and hit my face. Just click on the photo of my face and it'll automatically subscribe you, and I'll try to remember to remind you at the end. And if you want to support the channel, you can do that by commenting and just hitting that like button. That does support it without having having to pay anything or anything like that. And I just want to say thank you. I have gotten 2 super chats from people over the last couple weeks. I've never had those before, and I was so excited. Honestly, I think this piece is gorgeous the way it is, but like I said, we're going to be doing some other things to this. So I needed to put some gold on here, and I grabbed this gold rub and buff. Although on the pieces that we add, I did use gold metallic paint, and I wish I would have just done that, but I thought I was taking the easy way out, grabbing this gold rub and buff, which it's fine. I do add some of the gold paint later on, kind of with it, but it blends in very nicely with the gold paint on the pieces you'll see coming up. I'm only adding the rub and buff on the beading around the mirror, and then on these little dash dots, well, I think they're dashes and dots, and I take a little brush to do that with all around the frame. Thought I would show you all. My husband walked in and set this on my desk. Isn't this the cutest little pumpkin? I can't believe they're already out. He got it from the farmer's market, and he said, I had to have this. I had to bring this to you. Can't you paint it and make it really cute? I thought that was so sweet. Alright, so now I'm just showing you where I put that gold rub and buff and then around those edges. And of course later, if we need to, we can touch the green paint up. I took this new IOD bows mold and I made some out of resin. I went ahead and painted them that pink color, and now we're just going to attach the bow at the top and a couple of the ribbons. Now I made the large bow and it does hang over just a tad, but that's okay. I love how it looks, and I didn't feel like the small bow was big enough. So we're just going to take some TITEBOND triple thick glue to attach these just right on top of what we've already painted, and it just gives it such a statement. The next exciting part of this project is this mold of Persephone. Oh my goodness, I knew when I saw this it was my favorite. Even before I got it in person. Of course, I love busts and heads in decor, so this is right up my alley. Now, I don't know if this is after the Greek goddess Persephone, who was actually daughter of Zeus, queen of the underworld, etc., but there's a whole story if you guys want to look it up. I just thought she was beautiful even without anything on her, but I knew that I wanted her skin to look like porcelain, so I decided to use this champagne color metallic paint. It's just a folk art paint. I think it's just a folk art paint, and I'm going to paint her hair gold and add just a little bit of that metallic pink on top just for some hints. Now, while I was doing this whole project, I was going in my mind to but white wax this whole thing. Her, the green, tone everything back, and once I got it all put together, I just loved the contrast so much that I left it. So I'm curious to know, would you guys have white waxed all of this, or even dark waxed it? So I went ahead, once I finished putting the pink on, added some of that green as her headband, add a little bit of that pink and gold to her lips, and I did lose some footage. I'll go ahead and warn you, I painted some roses from one of the older IOD rose molds, and I did not get the footage of me gluing them on, but you can kind of see here how I'm placing them. Let me know what you all think of this one, and definitely about the wax. I fell in love with this just as is and couldn't wax it. If you love project number 1, you are really going to love project number 2. This is a very heavy piece of wood that had that glazing over the front. I paid $4 for it, and the glazing was covering footprints in the sand. It was very faded. I'm sorry that I've got that covered before you could see it, but I just used a base of white chalk paint to start out with because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with this piece. Or the colors I wanted to use. So I knew I just needed to get that older artwork covered up. So I pulled out several colors I'm showing you here of my DIY paints, and I'm going to go ahead and start with the weathered wood, just using a brush to get the main coat on, and then once I get it completely covered where I want it to go, I'm going to go back in and use a sponge to stipple it and give it more of a textured look. Now some of the paint had dried, so I just went ahead and used my water mister bottle and I sprayed it, and then was able to just re-sponge over that. Didn't need to use any more paint. After I finish that, I'm grabbing another color, which is Prairie Gray. Now generally I do light in the middle to dark on the edges when I'm doing sort of a faded shading of different colors, but we've talked in past videos about doing dark to light, so we're going to do dark to light today. Now it does still have quite a contrast in the dark edge and doesn't fade out completely, but I love the way this ends up looking. So after I did the Prairie Gray, I grabbed some, I think it was faded burlap, went around the edge with that, and then I grabbed my tarnished pearl and go all over to complete the edge and cover that white. Now the shape will change throughout this process until we get, of course, to the end of the project. I go ahead and add some Old School, which is like a charcoal gray, in on top of this, and I think I add maybe even a lighter gray, or this kind of mixes with the creams and makes it lighter. I can't remember, but it just isn't dark enough, and it hues a little blue, and you'll see when these paints dry. So I do go back in with some black, not a lot, just a little, because I felt like I really wanted this to be darker. And of course with the DIY paints, you have to seal them for them to get their true dark color, so you'll see that as well. Another thing I do is I take some of that gray and start outlining the edge, because we're going to work on that more coming up to make that blend better and just make the project look like it has a cool trim around it, if that makes sense. Now you can see here the gray and the brown, it's dried, so you can see the colors without the clear coat going on it, and this is where I decide it needs some black, and you won't see the true colors until we seal it. Now here I'm just taking a little bit of lighter color to kind of give it that faded look on just a few areas inside of the dark, so that we carry some of that white into the dark area, but just like hazes of it, kind of like marbling almost. Once I let this dry, I'm going to go ahead and give it a seal coat of the RUSTOLEUM matte clear coat finish that I use. It's in the link below under more in the description box. This is what we have. So what I'm going to do now is a little bit of stenciling and some stamping, because I want to bring some text in on this to give it even more of an interesting background. Now this is where you can have a lot of fun and use your creativity. I'm going to be using several different stencils. First I start out using the tarnished pearl paint to add some of that white in, or it's kind of like a light gray, into and around the edge. Now this is going to tone back, it's not going to stay this bright, but we've got to start somewhere and get those just different odd sort of little shapes and motifs on there. I'm going to use a couple different stencils for that, and then I'm going to add Prairie Gray and do the same thing with a different stencil. After I finish with the stencil and the Prairie Gray, I take a little bit of Prairie Gray and kind of dab over all of these tarnished pearl stenciled pieces to tone them back, because the paint around the whole dark area is a mix, so it's not just the straight tarnished pearl and as bright as you're seeing from the stencil. Plus the stencil leaves a little bit of a crisp look, and that's not really what we want. So if you take that darker Prairie Gray over top of all of these little areas, it'll tone those back. We will use some dark wax to help tone this back a little bit later, just a little bit, and you'll see that closer to the end of this project. Here is where I pick one of my IOD texture stamps and some of that prairie gray, and I roll some of it on the stamp, and I go over just areas on the piece. Then I actually use the pearl, tarnished pearl, and do the same thing. And I decided it needed some more black, so I bring one of the stencils in and do the same thing with the black paint. This is the fun process to me, and you can make this as little steps as you want or as many steps as you want. Just go until you feel like you've achieved what you were going for. Once I finish this, I will have to clear coat this again because I've used more chalk paint and more clay paint. Once I let that dry, the clear coat dry, we're going to use one of these new IOD gilded gold transfers. I am in love with these, but you all, this just about broke my arm getting this all off of here, and I am not complaining. It was so worth it, but just know that it takes some elbow grease to do these. So what I decided was to use this Journal de Roses. I'm gonna just lay it on my piece and just start rubbing with the little plastic stick that they give you. And I'm gonna pull up a little bit at a time just to make sure I'm making good contact, which it does. It's not hard to come off, it's just there's so many tiny pieces, so it's nothing that's wrong, it's the process. So once I get all of this off of here, it ends up being beautiful. Now I will tell you, I do love the very flashy gold. It's very shiny, and I did go ahead and use my matte coat finish on this. If you do that, the gold turns into the color that's on the paper you see now. It definitely takes that shine down, so if you don't like the glaring gold, use a matte sealer on it and it most definitely will tone that back. I love it either way, but my project, I just really wanted to use the matte finish on this one. Now I'm taking the backing sheet and just rubbing over this, making sure everything is down and connected. So I used several different IOD molds, including the new Really 3D Deep mold of roses, and I used some black chalk paint and some weathered wood. I just mixed the two to get kind of this mottled look, and then I sealed them with my clear coat finish. I'm just going to be placing these where I want them and using my TITEBOND glue. I don't use any hot glue because I'm going to let these just sit and dry overnight. And I put them all around just to frame this gorgeous transfer out. And once I get that finished, I'll go ahead and do my clear coat, which you'll see coming up how it totally tones that gold back. That way this can kind of give you an idea if you want to tone yours back with a matte coat or if you like the more reflective gold. And once we finish that, I let that clear coat dry, and I'm going to use just some dark wax in areas, not all over the whole piece, but on the inside and around that edge to trim it out. Plus I add some weathered wood and black paint around those edges to trim them out more as well. And you all have to let me know what you think about this one. Our last and final project, number 3, we're going to be using the new release IOD Fairy Tale Transfer. And what better way than to use this thrifted, sad little book that's yellowed over time and needs a cute little makeover. We're going to start out by using some black chalk paint on the right hand page, and just going around the edges of the left-hand page. For the left-hand side, we're going to use this beautiful Temu print of hats or millinery. I think this definitely goes along with the fairy tale, especially back in the Victorian days. They all wore beautiful hats. So we're going to put this on the left-hand side with some glue stick, and then we're going to take some molds to go around this and kind of trim this out and make it look like it fits on this page. Now the molds I'm using, I've just used clay and they're still wet so that I can mold them to this page. I do want to touch on the molds that I've been using in the beginning of this video. So I normally use the amazing casting resin that you can reheat and mold and change. And I thought I would try these half-gallon size for cheaper, more resin, and it's called Fabricast. I will never buy that stuff again because you cannot reheat it, and when they're hard as a rock, so they're stiff, and I like to be able to reheat my molds. So the amazing casting resin, you can do that with. I just assumed with any resin you could. That shows you how much I know about resin, but I did use it up, and I'm going to use the molds I made. But I did go ahead and order me some amazing casting resin for my next set of resin molds. Also, that stuff chipped, especially if it was, I don't know, it was just very brittle. And I read the reviews, and there was a lot of reviews like that. And I'm sure it's meant for something specific, but it's not working for me. So that's just my opinion about it. There's, nothing wrong with it. It's just not what I'm used to with the amazing casting resin. Alright, so I'm just going to take this DIY golden rule wax and go over the sides of the pages and the molds themselves. So this is going to be a base for what we're going to do coming up, because you'll see it looks pretty bland because it's all the same color, but we change that, of course, with more steps. So I go ahead and, like I said, do that kind of all around the edges, and then while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and work on the right side of the page. So I kind of wanted some text over here, kind of like it was a story. So I'm using this Fusion, I think it's Champlain color, kind of matches the background on the millinery hats. And I'm using this new IOD stamp. I think this is called Ephemera. Like I said, I'll have these linked in the description box below. I'm just rolling my color on, and I found a area that kind of looks like it would go on, fit on a page. And I stamp that, get it, good contact. And once I get that stamped, and then I'm going to take one of those little square stamps with the lady's head on it, because I thought they kind of fit with the whole theme, and I just remove that and do the same thing in the corner. Now, to trim this page out and add some florals kind of around it, I'm going to use the fairy tale florals you see laying right here. It's very beautiful. It has some soft colors. Oh, and right now I am sealing all of that wax with a clear coat, because I want to be able to put something over the wax if I need to. Yes, the rule is you don't put clear coat over wax because it won't work, but clear coat did stick to it, so take that with a grain of salt. And I'm just using clear wax on my paper to give it a good coat so that nothing will stick to it or smear or smudge. It'll have a nice little protective coating. So I've just picked a few of these out, and I'm going to just rub them on like we did the other transfers, kind of in just different areas, giving it that whole fairy tale floral look and matching the colors in those hats. Now I thought our black page was a little black, and I didn't want to use white wax. So I thought, I'm going to use the DIY gold patina. I forget the actual name. I know it's a patina and it's gold. I just showed you the jar, and I kind of went over the whole page and then wiped back a little bit with a wet wipe, and I loved how this looked on top of the black. It just gave a little bit of a shimmer and was so gorgeous. And then I transferred some of that onto the waxed areas of gold, because like I said, I'd put that clear coat and it was able to stick to those other gold areas. Now we're going to work on these edges. I want to bring some of that antique gold color that was already on these pages back through, because I don't want that just to be a solid gold wax and look kind of just bland. So I did that, and then I'm adding some black wax all around it, and I take this beautiful paint couture plum pudding color. I go over all the molds, leaving some of that gold showing through, and I go over all of the edges of this book just in some areas with that plum pudding to give it a look of that plum and carry it across the rest of the book as well. If you all stayed until the end of this video, leave me a hat emoji in the comment section or type the word hat. Also, if you want any of the new products from IOD, check Aunt Bee's Attic out. I have the link in the description box below. I do get a small percentage to help out the channel. Thank you for watching the video, and don't forget, if you want to subscribe automatically, my face is going to pop up on the screen. Just click on that in just a few seconds, and once you do, you'll be automatically subscribed. Now stay tuned for just small clips of the new IOD 2024 release at the end of this video. I'll see you real soon.